1332 is our number. Shane Bowering from Red Tape Busters joins me. Hello, mate.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you. We have some unfinished business to deal with today. Last week, you were telling me the story about the old bloke who had a six-story
unit complex
built beside his house, so close that he couldn't get in to paint it, or...
Oh, no, 24 centimetres, I think, was the measurement, and that was the rough measurement, so we're pretty close, between 20 and 30
he
anyway.
Couldn't get in there to clean his windows.
No, and there's no way he could get to paint it, and there's downpipes that come down between the house and the unit complex, and if there was anything to go wrong with the plumbing, there's no way he'd be able to fix that. Obviously, lights reduced because, the unit complex comes up against his windows.
Yep.
So, yeah, just an issue that, seemed to me to be wrong. Now, I'm not saying that development was illegal at all, because I don't know. I'm not a town planner.
Yeah.
But to have something 6 stories high built up against your house seems to me to be wrong in some way, shape or form.
Now, you'd need to think, therefore, that something was wrong. The council contacted us after we ran the story last week. I heard Chris Adams and guests commenting earlier on a story the past week regarding a property in Lutwyche. In future, we look forward to being provided with an opportunity to address accusations made against the council at the time. So they say that everything right was done. The council does, and we'll talk to Councillor Amanda Taylor in just a minute. So we offered them right of reply to have a chat to us about what happened. They said they didn't want to. They seem to have changed their mind again today. And for the on-again, off-again interview, I'm joined on the line by Planning Chairman Amanda Taylor. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Shane Bowering is here with me from Red Tape Busters. We were talking about this case last week about the old chap who had a 6-story unit block built so close to his house that you just can't get between them. We got some communication from the council saying that everything was done according to your rules correctly. Well,
yes, Chris. We actually sent an engineer out on site to confirm that they had built in accordance with the development application conditions that had been applied to that property, and we found that that was the case. It does seem in this situation, though, that there is some encroachment for the neighbourhood from the neighbouring property onto their site. So that seems to be the issue in this particular circumstance. It
seems to me that, if everything has been done correctly and an old bloke ends up with a 6-story block of units that close to his house that he can't get between the two, that then there's something wrong with what's been done.
Well, Chris, this actual area is zoned for higher density, and we went out and we talked to the community when we did the neighbourhood plan for the Lutwyche Road corridor. And we said to the community, we're growing, where do we want to grow? And the community really said to us, there's certain locations that we think are appropriate.
Sure. We're familiar with all that. But, I mean, here's a case where, regardless of whether you want to grow, whether you're dealing with high density, any of those issues, how can it be that if everything was done correctly, this building is so close to his house?
So this actual site is zoned centre, so it's right next to, I think it's about 200 metres from the local shopping centre, and it has been planned as part of the neighbourhood plan to go to higher density. So this is what we would expect to see in this sort of area. In fact, there are a number of townhouses and units actually in this street as it currently is.
Okay, I understand all that, but what I'm saying, though, is that so can other people expect, under this town plan, to have 6-story unit blocks built within 24 centimetres of their house too?
This is something that's been in place since the current city plan was prepared. So since 2000,
so the answer is yes.
You are able to do that currently and have been for a long time.
See, hi Amanda, this is Shane. My question is that house has been there, my understanding that's been there since the 1900s. So that house has been in situ since that date. So if you're saying there's encroachment, that's suggesting that there's been encroachment since 1900, that house has been positioned wrong. And this elderly gentleman obviously, if that is the case, wasn't aware. And I'm sure the encroachment isn't that, he's, 20 metres away from where the house is supposed to be situated. I just can't understand how, this has been allowed to happen, and that this gentleman's now lost probably a couple of $100,000 in the value of his house, and yet there's no compensation, there's no recourse for this gentleman, there's nothing.
Well, Shane, we do find from time to time that people have built on what they think is their property, but is not in fact the case. This is really a matter between the two property owners in these sorts of cases, and it does happen. across the city from time to time.
So how far
There's
out is the house, do you know, Amanda?
I'm not a surveyor, Shane, but we believe that the surveyor has gone out, looked at the property, and then has advised the titles office about this. There's a standard process about where this happened, and also notified the encroaching property owner. So that information's been provided because, of course, there becomes sort of all sorts of liability issues, and people are trying to make sure that they do the wrong thing.
So it is the house that's encroached, not the block of units?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, righto. So, I mean, though, somewhere in this process, though, it still seems to me that someone should have worked out that if two buildings are 24 centimetres apart, something's wrong.
Well, Chris, as I said, people are allowed in these sorts of areas where it's forecast to go to higher density, people are allowed to build to the boundary of that property. And in fact, the next door property, if they choose to do that, also can build to the boundary. These are places that are very close to the centre, so the shopping centre, about 200 metres away, high-frequency public transport with a northern busway, that huge investment in public transport right at their doorstep. This is the kind of place where we say it is appropriate for us to see some more people living in the future, and that has been forecast as part of the neighbourhood planning process. So we went out, talked to the community had their opportunity to provide feedback. And on this application, this also went out to public notification. There was registered post to the adjoining property owners. Everybody has been aware through all of those processes of what is being proposed.
All right, Amanda, thank you for your time today. Thanks for explaining.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.
Good
Thanks,
on you.
Shane.
See you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye.
Councillor Amanda Cooper, Chair of the Neighbourhood Planning Committee. So there you go. So now, interesting. What I'd like to know is a bit more about where you're likely to have... I mean, there may be an issue with the old bloke's house being too close by the sound of it. That sounds like what this is about. Still seems to me that it's crazy that no one picked that up and did anything about it, either he or his solicitors or his family or someone on the way through. But even if you can build right to the boundary of the property, then I want to know more about where this can happen.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting aspect. What suburbs can you might be able to expect that you're going to end up with a 6-storey, and I don't know whether they can go higher than that, right next to your house.
You know anyone who can tell us?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that we might be able to get somebody on next week and to flesh this out a little bit more.
Let's do it. It's 10:29. Veronica. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris, and good morning, Shane.
G'day, Veronica. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Now, Shane, I'm here to give you some follow-up from what happened last week.
You rang last week about returning some goods that you had some problems with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. Now, Chris, I got onto Shane's office and downloaded from the website of the Office of Fair Trading the rules that govern things, and Shane suggested that our situation came under the role of the goods had to be of a suitable quality.
Yep.
So I went with my friend back to the shop where when my friend explained that without the tags she wasn't happy to accept them. We just got a blanket. We do not do refunds, replacements, nothing. And anyway, she was adamant and she kept at that. Sadly, another customer who was in the shop decided to get in on the act and actually started abusing my friend, who I might add is in her 70s, and a tiny little thing, a little petite lady. The owner stood back and let this other woman absolutely abuse her. So I did express my outrage about that, and we just kept pressing the fact, and we were given she said the tags were taken off in the shop. First of all, she said they were taken off for taxation purposes. Then we were told she takes them off so she knows what to reorder.
Yep.
But the shop assistant the week before had told my friend that they take them off so the items cannot be returned. So we've now had 3 different versions. Anyway, so then I quoted from the Office of Fair Trading, how do we know that the item is of an acceptable quality? And she said, because it is. She wanted us to take her word for it.
Because I told you so.
Yes, exactly.
So I then sort of stepped in a little and I said, look, can you understand how my friend, she's lived internationally all around the world. She has never, ever bought an item without tags on it. Can you see where she's coming from? That she needs these tags for her to be comfortable that this is actually a brand new item. The woman would have absolutely none of it. When we told her that her assistant the week earlier had been very rude, she totally defended her assistant. So at that stage, we just made it very clear we were there for the long term. We were not leaving until we had it resolved.
Yep.
And so she actually went and served this other woman who I did ask to butt out, basically. Anyway, we just stayed there, and then it was after I said to my friend, look, we may have to just call it quits here, and we'll just let the department handle it from here on in.
Good tactic.
And suddenly she disappeared out the back and came back and said, all right, I'm giving you your money back. And what's more interestingly, she insisted on giving her cash, even though it had been a credit card transaction. But in the end, I think she was glad to see the end of this. But as I said to you, Shane, in my email, I was a flight attendant for 35 years, and I could not believe somebody, as this woman said, she'd been in business for 40 years, couldn't understand basically the first principle of business is the customer is always right.
Yeah.
But there could have been such a different outcome to that if she had just been nice and been...
Could have been much quicker and smoother. So
well, if she had empathised with my friend and said, my gosh, I'm so sorry, this has never happened before, and yes, I can see where you're coming from, let me reassure you, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, she's lost a customer. Well, she's lost two because I'll never go there either.
And you've got the outcome, or your friend's got the outcome that you wanted as well, so that's great.
We did get the outcome, but as I said to you in my email, if we hadn't had that paperwork and I'd highlighted the various things that were applicable, I think we could have been there a lot longer, put it that way.
Well, that's great, Veronica. I'm glad to have helped you.
Thank you very much, Shane.
My pleasure, anytime.
Good on you, Veronica. Well done for sticking to your guns. That's what you've got to do.
And that's what you've got to do. If you've been wrong, just stick to your guns and hopefully you'll get the outcome that you want.
13 13 32 is our number if you have an issue you'd like Shane to deal with, and that's about all we've got time for today. But we're back to our full length next week.
Oh, great. Absolutely.
So next Sunday, Shane will be in for the extended time. Well, not the extended time, but this time that we normally have. We've just been shortened up for the last few weeks. So plenty of issues to deal with. If you've got one you'd like him to help with, give us a yell. 13 13 32 the number. On you, mate.
Good on you, mate.
When a Manly played it.
No, they've already won, mate.
That's right,
already
did,
beat the Roosters.
Yes,
so
they did. And well, but it kept them to nothing.
Absolutely. I'll be texting Greg Carey very shortly about that. So
expect that one down the line, Greg. Good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very
next
much.
Week. 27 to 11, News Talk 4BC.